All right, we're here with Nolly from Periphery. How are you today?
Great, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for spending time with us. So you have basically a 2-record set out right now.
Mm-hmm.
Juggernaut, Alpha and Omega, which is a true juggernaut. It's an excellent name for it. You yourself, if you watch the webisodes that you guys put out on it, have a lot to do with it, mixing, engineering, and even though all of you kind of produced it, you kind of seem to be overseeing a lot of the production.
Right.
How stressful was that for you?
I guess more stressful than I thought it was going to be, but at the same time, in reflection, I think it was such a great learning process, and there was definitely a lot more stuff could have gone wrong than actually did, for sure. I think the stress is just natural when you're dealing with your own band, especially because you really want to please every member of the band, and you're aware of the weight of responsibility on your shoulders to not mess up this album on the behalf of these other people. So I think I went a bit neurotic by the end. But I think that as a result of that, next time around, and we've kind of spoken a little bit, I think the band want to go down a similar route. Assuming that we do, I think I'll be able to streamline the process a little bit, make it a little bit less stressful, and it'll be the second time around for everyone, so I think everyone will have a better idea of how things would go.
Right. Do you think at times that it was hard for Misha to kind of relinquish some of that, because he has had such a hand in the sound of Periphery?
I've heard Misha speak about this many times, and contrary to what you might think, he actually is extremely happy to have a group of people around him that can take on the responsibility. I think initially he was so involved in every aspect of the music because he figured that was the only way to get the band off the ground. But I think his intention is always to find a group of people that had a diverse range of skills that they could bring to the table. And now, in his own words, he gets to be the guitarist instead of being the band leader in every sense. So I think he's actually very relieved with that. Of course, he still has a very strong idea of how he wants the band to sound, and that's critical to Periphery like that now. It's what the band is founded on. So it's extremely important that he has a hand in everything, and he has all the skills required to do that. So, of course, he's still very, very necessary as a member of the band, of course. And I think he didn't find it very difficult at all to relinquish that control.
Okay. Being that this is a concept album, per se, and it's like this ride of a narrative of the character kind of going through a birth and a rebirth, and going between right and wrong, bad and good and so forth. Did you guys completely rely on Spencer and his direction lyrically, or was there a whole band effort in that?
I think it's fair to say there was a whole band effort. It wasn't like the entire story was written and then we started writing music. I think the two fed off each other a lot. And I think one of the first pieces of music that got written before any idea of the concept had come to mind was what would become The Scourge. Misha wrote that, and that set the tone really for the album. And I think that was one of the reasons why we wanted to put that song out first, even though it might not have been a very logical lead track. But it had a very dark vibe, it was very theatrical, it was heavy. And I think just feeding off the energy of that, Spencer immediately was able to start fleshing out this story. And Matt as well helped quite a bit with the fleshing out of the story, I think, or even just guiding Spencer down the path. And once the two things started to come together, I think they started to feed off one another. And while there was definitely a very good idea of what the storyline was going to be, once the music was being written at the same time, that allowed all the gaps to be filled out. And even till the end, we were adding little links musically that would help tie together the storyline as well, just feeding off what Spencer had written.
There's some amazing concept albums out there. You have anywhere from the masterpieces of Pink Floyd to like the flops of Kisses the Elder. Was there any like huge trepidation that like, oh man, I don't know if we want to go down this territory? Because you've been thinking about a concept album for quite some time.
I think that's the reason why we pushed through it, because not just we, but I mean for years and years before even Periphery was a band, Misha's had this idea of doing a concept record. So there was no way that we could possibly back out of it. And it was a challenge that we wanted to face because we thought it'd be very cool to try writing music to a story rather than starting with just a blank canvas. And I think that was something that everyone wanted to do so much that that was the only way to go through with it. And certainly we wouldn't, I think you'd probably dissuade yourself if you sat about thinking that you have to write something that's going to compare to a Dream Theater album or a Pink Floyd album. I mean, that's just ludicrous. So I think we really just tried to keep our eyes on what we were doing, and every concept album is very different, I think. And I don't think you could necessarily put them up against one another as equals in, between any of the great concept albums. But I'm proud of what we achieved with it. It's interesting. I don't know if we'll go down that path again. Probably not immediately, anyway. But I don't think it was quite enough for us to go off the whole idea.
Right. Do you have any favorite concept albums?
A weird one, Time by Electric Light Orchestra.
Oh, nice.
It was a favorite band of mine when I was growing up. I didn't even know that was a concept record because I was so young. I didn't know what that meant. But, also, I guess The Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
I'm thinking there's one on the tip of my tongue that I'm forgetting about. Whatever, we'll move on. Maybe I'll think about it later.
Absolutely. In a few days you head off to Columbus for Rock on the Range.
Yep.
How do you guys feel about that?
It's going to be really fun. I think at this point we've been touring for most of the months of this year. We've already done a whole slew of festivals. So we're very much in playing mode, and I think everyone's feeling very cohesive as a unit. So it's the best possible feeling to be going into a big festival appearance like that. So it's going to be great. I've never been. I'm from England, so this is all very new to me. But I hear that it's an incredible festival, so I can't wait for it.
It's amazing. I'm sad I won't be there this year, but so my friends will be, so I'll make sure that they take pictures for me.
Yeah, please do.
So I saw in some of the videos, Mark from Veil of Maya, mutual friend. What was Mark doing there?
Oh, that was only because of the locality of it. He was actually in Taylor Larson's studio. Taylor recorded our last album. We used his studio to record drums for Juggernaut, and then we rented the studio literally down the corridor to do all the guitars and bass in. So we were just on the same corridor, and he'd just moved in with Taylor to begin work on finishing the album that just came out yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
So he just happened to be in town, and of course we hung out.
Okay, excellent. That concept, I only go back to everyone as the producer, even though you kind of, in a sense oversaw everything, had the responsibility at least. You talk a lot about how it was such a great process. How did you go into it, like from the beginning? Like, was there like a meeting and kind of like, hey, okay, this is how we're going to take the approach to this record?
Yeah, there was a bit. I'd say there were several meetings actually about every aspect of the record, and some of them they were all very productive. Some of them we were all on the same page, some of them we weren't, and it took hours maybe to resolve our different ideas for how things should go. I was mindful of taking on the role of producer. I didn't necessarily want to boss my bandmates around, but they told me that they were on board with that, so we decided to roll with it. And as you say, everyone did produce, because to me a producer is just someone that facilitates the creative process, gets something from music in your head or a demo to a final product. So everybody input hugely there. I think these days the word producer is kind of taken on many meanings at once, so it becomes more difficult to really use it in this context. I was the producer, but everyone else was the producer as well. I think what you could say, although that might be lending too much importance, is that I was the executive producer and that I got the final say on things, but I guess it's more like the producer of a TV show where it's like the logistical aspects of stuff, where the director still has the creative vision. Okay.
So where does Periphery go from here? What's next?
We're just going to keep playing and writing music. Actually, as we speak, Misha has his recording rig in the backstage room, and he and Jake are writing something which is already sounding very cool. So that's literally happening as we talk right now. I think that's just going to keep going. We actually have a few months of relatively little touring or playing at all over this summer period, which is going to be interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of activity on the writing front during that time, and I can't wait to get back with the guys after all of that. We've got some cool plans for the end of the year, but I know we're all going to be in that mode again where we're thinking about music, and that never really goes away with Periphery, to be honest. There's always new material coming out. always ideas for how we might be able to present it in the future. And I think that's going to be the key thing, really, is what we can do with the delivery system of the music that we write. And I'm not saying we're going to reinvent the wheel with the next album, but it's always something which is in our mind.
Well, Juggernaut is an amazing record, and obviously we have a lot to chew on for a while. So we look forward to what comes next. And thanks for coming to Pittsburgh, man.
It's awesome.
It's going to be a great show tonight, Stage 80.
This whole area is beautiful, by the way. I was wandering around.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we love it here. So keep coming back.
We will, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.